The winner of the 2024 Solar Builder Project of the Year, 1 megawatt to 10 megawatt category, as voted on by the readers, is the Cincinnati Zoo Solar Carport in Cincinnati, Ohio. This 2.85 megawatt C&I carport installation represents the largest publicly accessible urban solar array in the United States. The Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden now has 3 solar arrays on its property to help meet its net zero goal by 2025. Here to talk about the project are J.R. Stoll, Project Manager, and Monica Niehaus, Business Development Manager at Melink Solar, which served as the EPC on the project, and Brad Fye, Operations Manager for Terrasmart's Canopy Division, which installed the mounting system.
Solar Builders 2024 Project of the Year Awards are sponsored by Aurora Solar. Learn more at aurorasolar.com.
So the Cincinnati Zoo is no stranger to solar. How did this project come about and what was the driving force behind it?
Yeah, so this project that they did is not their first solar project. They've been a big believer in sustainable renewable energy for over 15 years. And the Cincinnati Zoo has a goal to be net zero energy, making them, one of the greenest zoos in the world. At this point, the Cincinnati Zoo has over 4.5 megawatts of a solar capacity. And with this last parking canopy project, they're 3/4 of the way there. This was just another opportunity after the Inflation Reduction Act was passed for them to take advantage of incentives that are offered to nonprofits.
You mentioned there are other solar arrays. What kind of sets this project apart from the other solar projects that the zoo has developed?
The rough area of the initial canopy done in 2011 versus the one that was just completed is roughly the same, but the energy production is almost doubled for this new canopy, which really highlights how far the industry has come in that short time frame. A couple other key aspects that the zoo was really keen on: the canopy has a much bigger span. We're looking at a 50-foot span versus a 34-foot span with the original canopy. And then also one of the key objectives for the zoo was to have every canopy on this new carport be over 14 feet tall to accommodate RVs, buses. Day one of us allowing buses into the parking lot, I think we had 52 buses come in, park under there, which was a really cool achievement for the zoo.
From the canopy structural side of things, what kind of challenges were kind of overcome there?
From the canopy side, I think the biggest challenge we overcame was really the design and engineering part of this. We're very familiar with the site. We actually, Terrasmart, through a former company, Protect Park, built the first arrays with Melink. So we have a long, outstanding partnership together. Going to this project, we knew the site that they were looking at had a lot of underground utilities in it. It was a spider web of underground utilities. So really the big challenge was upfront planning of knowing where those utilities were located, how to place columns to dodge as many of those utilities as possible. And also when ISTA's design custom spread footer foundations actually go over top of the utilities. So we still put, the canopies ready to be the maximized production.
Monica, I know you kind of touched on the IRA aspect of this project, but can you guys explain a little bit more about how the project was financed?
Yeah, so I'll first compare this project to that first canopy project that they did in 2011. 2011, before incentives were offered to the same degree that they were offered via tax credits to for-profits, the zoo financed that first project through a power purchase agreement, which is when a third-party investor owns and purchases a system. They also operate and maintain it during usually a longer term. The zoo, after realizing, the electric bill savings, they ended up purchasing that system after several years. Then when the Inflation Reduction Act was passed in 2022, in the background, there's been years of development for the second canopy project. But as soon as the IRA was passed and allowed them to take advantage of the direct pay or elective pay for nonprofits, then that really pushed them to own and purchase the system themselves versus financing it through an investor or third party. They have already been on a long time solar journey and they've seen the benefits. Their board has really gotten on board with the whole idea of transitioning away from grid power. and hedging away from those rising utility costs. So they were able to make the case to purchase it themselves, knowing that they would get those incentives after the project's completed.
Brad, I know you mentioned the underground utilities, but I kind of want to touch on what were some of the biggest challenges in getting this project built, and how did the project team overcome those?
I'm gonna say one of the other big challenges was the schedule. This is obviously working in an active parking lot where all their visitors park. So one of the big challenges was to coordinate deliveries and installation during the zoo's non-peak hours. So I know Melink had a very short time frame of when the zoo had lower visitor counts and they could actually afford to shut down that parking lot for us. So that was one of the big challenges, making sure that everything was prepped, ready to go, so that day one, when that parking lot was closed down, we start the construction of this project.
You mentioned that time frame. When was project start and completion? What did that look like?
The started early January, and the goal was having completed, I believe, by April.
We essentially had the early part of the year to have the parking lot to ourselves, and then it was a very sequenced schedule as far as opening up as the zoo got busier and busier, especially with some of the busing schedules with all the school events, and energization happened in June.
So what would you say is the significance of this being the largest accessible urban solar array in the U.S.?
For the zoo visitors, their first and last experience is this solar array. So when they come in, they get to see, either of the arrays, and it's something that clearly shows the zoo it shows their efforts in their sustainability journey. It shows they're willing to, invest in these technologies. And then at the end of the day, they come back to their car, and it's a lot cooler than sitting in a 120-degree parking lot in the summer.
I think also a lot of solar installations feel very distant to people. It's, they're driving on the highway and they see these large utility scale installations, or a commercial facility has rooftop solar that you can't see from the ground level. So for visitors to be able to park underneath and look up and see the bifacial solar modules that can absorb light from both sides, that's another thing that differentiates this project versus the first project. It's more obvious with this project that there are solar systems above their car, that it's actually providing shaded parking to and powering the zoo. Whereas the first project had the white back sheets. So it was a lot of people don't realize that they were parking underneath a solar system at the time. And now it's more obvious.
And how will this project benefit the zoo as well as the Cincinnati region at large?
The zoo is actually formalizing what's called the Community Solar Resiliency Program, and that aims to basically extend energy and climate resilience to Cincinnati communities. The Cincinnati Zoo is the nation's second oldest zoo, and if you've ever been there, it's landlocked in an urban setting. They've really become an innovator with this, and they've really been able to benefit and use this technology to benefit their surrounding community, who lives in energy poverty. And a lot of these homes in Avondale, these residents can't always afford to pay their electric bill. So they've launched this Community Solar Resiliency Program to allocate these solar resources across the community. Horses on the Hill was the latest one. With this project, they ordered some extra modules, and with those, they weren't used for the solar project at the zoo, but instead they allocated them to community projects that are in need and that could really benefit from lowering their electric bill. They are very conscious with these projects. They could have a larger impact, and they continue to really push the envelope to show people what's possible when it comes to implementing these types of projects.
It also was a community build. Cincinnati Zoo, Melink's home office in Cincinnati, Terrasmart's home office in Cincinnati. The installation crews were local to Cincinnati. The fabrication company was local to Cincinnati. So everything was a community project. Everything was pretty much local for this project. So I think that's a very important piece of this project as well.